Welcome to Inside the Exchange, where we discuss entrepreneurship, business development, and how your business can succeed here in San Joaquin County. Click the link below to learn more. Now let's get into the episode. Nick, for those that might not know you yet, can you give us a little brief background?
My background actually started from the ground floor. I started in construction, sweeping the floors, and then working my way up through basically hard knocks. And that was my trajectory.
Were you introduced to the trades through a family member, or how were you?
I actually grew up around it. My dad worked in the construction industry for over 25 years for general contractors. So I remember actually going out there in grade school once in a while if there was an emergency, which never happens. But so grew up in the tilt market down in SoCal.
That's awesome. That's typically how children for the next generation are introduced. And that's why we really enjoy our trades day, because it doesn't have to be through their direct contact. We can introduce the trades through our members at our trades day at Delta College. You are a project manager at F&H. What does your typical day look like?
My typical day changes week to week, depending on how many projects I'm on. Whatever I plan on Monday typically doesn't happen by Friday. But there's probably a couple days a week I'll be on full-time on site, and then in the office a few days a week. So
I can see it probably changing hour by hour too, depending on the days.
Correct.
And the projects and
client demands.
Yes. Anything that happens on the job site that changes any of the outcome for that day.
But I was going to say, that's what I like about being a project manager. It's not just one set routine.
Mm-hmm.
Go from there. Sometimes it's not as fun, but is what it is.
That's kind of the attraction to construction as well. It's not typically the same. You're changing job sites, you're changing subs, you're changing, so many aspects of it that you're working with. So it's not the same thing over and over again. What is the biggest lessons you have learned from working your way up in this field?
One of the biggest lessons I've learned is like planning to fail is planning. Failure to planning is planning to fail. Mm. If you do not plan, like, it will bite you every time. That's a Ben Franklin quote. And it used to be above my door when I was running jobs, because everyone would come in and everything was an emergency. Mm-hmm. You have to plan, communicate.
Yeah. You have to have multiple plans within that one plan. If you
real quick, move the mic a little closer.
Okay. That's okay. I'll handle myself. If you can go back and give your younger self one piece of advice in your early career, what would that be?
Be patient. Trust the process. Everyone, when you're younger, you have a lot of drive, and you just have to do the process. And before you blink, you'll know it, and you'll be right where you wanted to be.
True. So you can enjoy it as well as you're building it. That's a good lesson just in life.
It is.
Trust the process. So the project management insight that you can give us to our members, every job site is different. So what are the key things that you look at before a project, before it even starts?
I think there's a couple of key components is who your team is. And the team can be just from our internal team to the subcontractors. Mm-hmm. You try to have trade partners and people that you've done work with over the years that you trust. Then you also have to look at, one of the big things is what city jurisdiction you're working in, because that presents its own set of challenges. And if you don't think about that up front, mm-hmm. You don't plan for it, whether it's inspections and whatnot, when you do the overall construction schedule, it can really throw a wrench in it at the end if you're not preparing.
Yeah, true. How do you balance the tight timelines for its safety, quality, and especially during unpredictable seasons?
Well, I know we do weekly schedule updates. We send them out every week. We do monthly updates, and then we also do material long lead items, because it's one of those things that if you're not looking ahead all the time, especially like if there's going to be rain, mm-hmm. you have to plan for it. You let your subs know, you let everyone else know, go from there. Because it's not just, the day of the rain, it's how much did it impact your soil? Can you drive on it? Can you not drive on it? Sometimes you present to the owners, do you want to try to cover this? Do you want to, there's rain mitigations we can try and attempt. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes we advise it's not.
Yeah, to reroute. Um, I was thinking about that too with just delays. So if you're not self-performing and you have your subs out there, they all obviously have their own delays within their own organizations, whether it's material, PG&E has its timeline. Like there's just so many factors that go into it. So yeah, you can plan again, but you're relying on the fact that everybody else is planning as well as you as the GC, so they can finish that work on a timely manner. What do you think would be considered a well-run site compared to one that's just keeping up?
I think from a GC point of view is communication. If we're letting people know every week what's going on, it tends to be a better, well-run job. If it's if you're trying to scramble and you're trying to do last minute inspections and stuff like that, sometimes it can be a dumpster fire. So,
yeah. And it probably seems a lot to the smaller companies, or the people that don't have the full staff office to be able to support that. But those weekly meetings really do keep everybody on track, and it allows the other subs to know, and they can work amongst themselves. I feel the jobs that I've ever been on, when there is a big line of communication, there's that first meeting in the beginning, and then you work with the subs, you get to know who they all are. It works better overall, and that fully supports the GC and run. And if they don't have that ability and they're just clashing, then it just causes so many issues that you just can't control.
Absolutely. I do think that sometimes subcontractors, they don't look at everything. I know everyone's super busy, but people do not just send it out for, nothing.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we invest time into it and update everything how we're supposed to. And honestly, I've had some subcontractors over the years ask, like, hey, what's going on, or what's going like this? If you see something that's wrong there, I get a phone call and it's like, okay, don't worry about it. Okay, that is an issue. But either way, if you're paying attention, none of it should be a surprise.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And as to some, it might be a challenge, but I think when they get used to it and then they apply it to other jobs as they move forward, they will see the advantages of it. What roles of communication do you play between the GC subs, owners, and what is your approach keeping everybody aligned? Is this those calendar reminders?
Yeah, it's one of those things that we have, weekly subcontractor meetings, we have weekly owner meetings. And the biggest thing is we don't use different schedules. We don't use different mantras. It's like you just go out there and everyone's on the same page and you go from there. Yeah. So as far as keeping owners happy, it's not always easy. Stuff does come up and difficult, but have those tough conversations early on. Don't surprise them at the end. And usually it's worked out pretty well.
Financial changes at the end with any, and anyone that has a mindset that goes into a job and assuming that there are not going to be any challenges, whether it's weather or financial challenges, is just kind of setting themselves up too. Because, you just can't predict what's underground. You can't predict what's going on up in the weather, and all sorts of stuff can happen. So definitely having that good communication will.
No, you can't predict everything.
No, you could try.
You could try.
It just doesn't work. Has there been any memorable challenges on recent projects that have taught you something new about leadership or problem solving?
There was a project down in Merced that we ran into a shortage on electrical equipment. We ended up we had several meetings and we brainstormed, and we ended up being able to piece everything together, keeping the schedule. So that was a challenge of trying to, I know more about electrical than I care to know after that conversation, but it's one of those things. If you sometimes just, put everyone's heads together, you'll figure it out.
Was that a school job that was down there?
That
So you have
was
the school timeline as well, because they want everybody out of the streets. They want obviously this campus to be up and running, and it's hard to meet those timelines as well, and
100
any delays.
100%. You have a year and a half project that is driving and everything is tracking how it's supposed to. You get, monthly updates, and all of a sudden you get a curveball.
Yeah.
It's, the district was very happy with us. We ended up having to get their engineer involved and all sorts of things, but it ended up working out just fine. But I remember sitting there debating whether it was going to be
running away
from us or, in control. But it's like,
Yeah.
you got to, just work through it.
Yeah. And kind of not show everybody all the stress that you're under.
No.
Just kind of pat the sweat beads, figure it out, take a deep breath.
Well, yeah, I thank God some of them were phone calls instead of FaceTimes,
Yeah.
and go from there.
Yeah. So one of the topics that we wanted to bring up with the winter coming up and how you would get a job site ready for the winter. So as we head into these colder months, what are the first steps that your team takes to prep for the winter?
Well, I think that's probably a pretty involved question. Some projects are out of the ground and you're weatherproofed in. Some of them are still digging. I know one of our projects, one of our superintendents came up with a really intelligent idea of filling all the footings with lean concrete. And so it's one of those things, when it rained, we pumped it out. It was done. We only lost a day of time on the schedule, but in the meantime, we can just prep as much as we can, whether it's putting AB down, rock, all the entrances, basically making it to the point where if it rains, it doesn't really shut us down too long. But like that being said, you run into the risk of everyone trying to do it at the same time. I bet you asphalt right now is really hard to get. So you just try your best, try to get it in the schedule and get
and
a
explaining
date.
that to a job owner, the owner of the job, they don't necessarily understand those challenges of why you cannot buy asphalt at certain times. And, there's a peak time for that until you've dealt with it.
Yeah, we ran into that last year at one of the Merced projects that we had a date and we had to keep it. And there was no wiggle room because if not, we would miss the plant date.
And that's a nice thing when you do have that rapport and everybody kind of can see each other as humans and that you're all trying to work together and it isn't trying to create a problem, that they maybe can put that resistance down and realize we're all trying to get it done done on a timely manner and not cause any delays and not, be aware of other people having issues as the schedule changes. So that communication obviously is so key. How do you handle the delays with weather on your job sites? I'm sure they vary, of course, but
it truly varies. I mean, sometimes they're not impacted at all. Sometimes if you have a newer building, you make sure you check the building and see if there's any leaks or not. Typically there's not, but you always want to try to look. I went to a seminar where they were talking about water being the number one cost and damage in construction. And there's consultants that people hire to test everything and do everything. But it's one of those things you basically got to let the storm ride out and see what you're working with.
that would be a good class here at the Exchange if we had a consultant come in and just kind of go over the top issues with winterizing or the water, or, that's actually a good idea. We do the tailgates. We try to talk on certain topics, but that's definitely something. So again, it's not you against one sub or the other sub. It's just how do we work together to make it work at that time, to keep the job going and on time. What are some of the common mistakes that you've seen with companies when it comes to winter prep and how they can avoid them?
I've had a couple clients years ago that we advised them to do lime treatment on the site. We had 100-acre projects that all of a sudden, went to a swamp, and it's one of those things they didn't want to pay for it. And then you get into really, really bad, heated arguments, or, then emotions take over. I know there's projects that I've heard about in Lathrop where footings have caved out and it's cost millions of dollars in damages. So luckily, I haven't had to have all that, but it doesn't mean that it can be on the next one.
Definitely. And typically lime treatment is done at the end, but that's something that can help with erosion with water.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So typically, well, you can actually do it up front.
Okay.
It's just one of those things you have to dig through it.
Yeah.
And then
That's
replace
where
it.
the people that have to dig don't really like the lime treatment.
100%, but they also like digging on something solid instead of
True.
swampy. So it really is, it's your cake and eat it too. It just depends on what side of the coin you are on the day.
I'm sure they hear lime treatment and they're like, no, not till we're done with our scope of work. But like you said, it's a solid surface to dig in. How do you approach the material storage and production while the rain and the cold could damage these supplies?
Well, you have to follow all SWIP regulations, which usually if there's stockpiles, you cover them, you put your straw bottle in. As far as shortages, typically, I think the valley's good enough where the material is pretty available. I think we discussed it kind of, the asphalt can be a problem, depending on the size of volume you're running.
Definitely.
If it's just a small part,
patchback or
smaller,
yeah,
it's not that big of a deal. But when you're trying to do really big pours, I know some of the bigger graders out here will literally schedule 4 to 6 weeks out. And if you got to get a date, otherwise you are done.
Yeah. No.
So I think the manpower and then the availability to the plants is going to be your biggest thing, because we'll have plenty of material. It's just, can you get the material the day you want?
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that you have to get at that day. It's not something you can store on site. Do you have, I'm assuming when they submit their bid as a subcontractor, and then you obviously submit your main contract when you are applying for the job to win the winning bid, the subcontractors each have to sign their own SWEP contract within ours, or do you just assume they're SWEP?
It really depends on the project. For the most part, the SWIP drawings they're in the contract documents. The GC as a whole will usually take that scope. Okay. But we do write it in every subcontractors. You can't just go in there, destroy it, and then not pay for it.
Yeah.
Basically, you just got to leave it better than you found it, and you should be fine.
Yeah.
I know underground sometimes if they got to connect to the street, they need to take it out, put it back. I think that's pretty much just common sense.
Yeah.
It's, but
and you have to have your plates in between and, do all your patch back. Yeah, definitely. If somebody is just off the rocker and you just see this tumbling down, have you ever had to just say, hey, stop, this has to be put into place, and an email's drawn up? And
well, yeah, absolutely. I've had it a couple times, not recently, but I mean, SWIP involves a state water board. It is not a joking matter. If you get fined for it, I think the minimum fine is $10,000 a day. It's one of those things. For the most part, most GCs understand what we have to do, what we don't have to do. We have weekly inspectors that come out usually, and then you have pre-storm, post-storm. So it's not like we have a whole lot of wiggle room to have excuse why not.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see something, you say something.
Yeah. Do you send an email when it's coming out, the weather's changing, or just assume that they signed up for it? They should know as a sub, or
they should know as a sub, but usually on the weekly schedules, we send out weather.
That's good.
And so it's like, hey, for instance, if there's a subcontractor that's doing 3 different areas, he's not going to, he could or could not track 3 different weathers, but we remind him.
Yeah. No. And it's good. I think some people typically have it on their daily sheets as well, is what the weather was like. So if they ever have to go back and see why something didn't work properly.
Yeah. And I know we use Procore as a whole, and it tracks every day.
Oh, Procore is yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things, you could go back, you can find out. I think legally, the only one that you can use when it comes to ownership is NOAA. NOAA will give you the last 3 days and tell you how much rain you actually got and stuff like that. So if you get a decent amount of rain, you typically will go in and pull that report and then save it.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Inside the Exchange, hosted by Builders Exchange of San Joaquin. If you own a construction or service-based business here in San Joaquin County, we help businesses like you through networking, training, insurance, and connecting you with the best jobs available. Click the link below for more information. Now let's get back to the episode. That's good. Do you see a difference between public work projects and private work projects handled during the season changes?
Typically, no. I think clients are clients. Some think ahead, some don't.
Cities are cities. They don't want mud going down their drains.
No, and it's one of
dragging
those
out.
things. As far as no, you still have the same enforcement
Yeah.
throughout the state, but some clients don't mind paying for things. Some, the budget is stretched, and it's like, no, I'd rather just wait.
Yeah.
And you can't begrudge it. It is what it is.
Yeah. Are there any specific tools, tech, or systems that help monitor and adapt during the winter months?
I mean, Procore is pretty good. You got to do all your reports. You do all your tracking, your notices. That's pretty much what we do. I do know that we'll go into NOAA and history. So before we start a project, we'll go in there and analyze how many days per year that it should be getting rain.
Okay.
So we typically will put that in a schedule.
Like a farmer's almanac where they can kind of predict?
No, it'll take the last 30 years of history and then sit there and say, like, I think Stockton right now, the Stockton airport gets on average 17 days per year.
Okay.
Over a quarter inch.
Okay. Wow.
I had to use that in a
That's really
project.
cool. Yeah. Good research knowledge. Let's move into your career growth and industry advice. What does a career growth look like for someone in your position, and what are the next steps after project management?
My goal is to get into upper management, but F&H has some really strong leadership right now. So and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So in the meantime, I'm just trying to trust the process and do projects.
Yeah, you were landed there for a reason, right? How do you continue learning and staying sharp in this fast changing industry?
Just consistently try to do trainings and be open to new ideas. I can say I probably learned at least one or two things a week from my engineers, and go from there. Technology is changing so fast.
Do you pursue the trainings on your own, or is it something just the company advocates for, is just that continuous education?
I would say both.
Yeah.
I know we have trainings at least once a month. We have quarterly meetings and go over everything, and then they offer extra trainings that we can do on our own time.
That's awesome. What qualities do you look for someone that wants to move up into leadership?
Be consistent. Show up on time. You can only control attitude and effort. Typically, that if you do that, you'll move up.
Yeah. The Builders Exchange is all about connecting and supporting members. How has the networking and being a part of that community impacted your career?
I'd say it definitely opened my contacts. Most of my career I was in SoCal, so when I came up here, it was nice it sped things up along a lot because I was the new guy in town. So I could say that it definitely got to know the community a lot faster that way.
That's awesome. What advice would you give to someone who wants to transition from the field into the management position?
I would say that make sure you perfect or get really good at the field, because when you go in the office, it's apples and oranges. But if you know the field, it gives you a really good foundation.
Yeah. The real time that you'll need to finish a project, or the real time issues that you'll know when you've been out in the field, I would say would definitely help, because it's one way to look at it on a computer, one way to think it's going to work out, through the emails or, but there's so many factors that go into the field work. And I'm sure with management that you have to constantly put together like a puzzle.
Absolutely. And then you kind of sort through the problems.
Yeah.
Because you know which problems are not always right, but you know which problems are major and which ones aren't.
Again, everything's not an emergency. Yes, that just comes with time. I'm still learning that. Where do you see the construction industry heading in the next few years, especially in California?
I see from my point of view, I just see consistent growth. If you look around San Joaquin County, I think from 2010 to 2022, there was like a 15% growth in population. And if you look around right now, they're just building homes from Manteca,
Mm-hmm.
Lodi, Stockton. It's just
Lathrop.
Lathrop. I
mean,
mean,
so many
Lathrop had the
places
biggest
where,
growth.
yeah.
So it's one of those things that when I moved up here in 2017, there was a big article about the biggest growth in the industrial market in the entire United States.
Wow.
So
Yeah. Talking sometimes it could be so hard. So into our closing and the connection with the Builders Exchange, how has your relationship with the Builders Exchange helped you and your team with F&H Construction?
I'm kind of still new to F&H, but I know they've been around since 1963. I know the Builders Exchange has been around for over 100 years. So as far as I know, they've been part of it since they've started. I know they use the plan room. We go to the functions. I know the big ones, the crab feed that everyone likes to go to, but we still use the plan room all the time. We use some of the other features, posters, and all the good stuff that we provide.
Do they check in with you because they know that you're an active board member and you're giving back with the exchange as a contractor, as a member? Do they see that relationship as a good and how allowing you to grow within the organization as long with the Builders Exchange, with your community, that cohesiveness?
Absolutely.
Yeah. They
It-
support that.
yeah.
Good. What do you think younger professionals or smaller contractors could gain from joining the Builders Exchange of San Joaquin?
I think there's a lot of connections that you can build, and there's a lot of access to trainings. Um, that's for the younger generation. There's the scholarships. We still don't get enough applications every year. And as far as smaller building businesses, the plan rooms, I know we have a lot of, health benefits, trainings.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of access that would normally cost a lot more. So I do think with the smaller businesses, you definitely get a better rate. Like you are a big business, CPR trainings, all that good stuff.
Well, we can be your one shop where you can get your prints done for your plan room. You can get your notary done for any liens or any papers that you need, any notary signatures done. You can have your fingerprinting done, which is required on a majority of school jobs. And we hopefully would be able to host that for those jobs, if not the school that offers it directly. But there's definitely a lot of benefits, and we love to hear back from our members and new potential contractors to see what we can do to problem solve. So that's one thing I think is great about our board and our organization, is that we're always growing to adapt as well, to make sure that we're offering compliancy and whatever we can to make sure that they're offering, consistency to the GCs if they're a sub, or vice versa if they're a GC. So it's neat to be able to be part of that and instrumental to that. Is there anything you're currently excited about, upcoming projects, personal goals, or things that you would like to see in the industry?
As far as projects, we have a big one coming up in Oakland. I'm excited about that one. It's definitely there's going to be some different building that I'm not used to, or so excited. There's some new technology, prototypes, and stuff like that on the solar end. As far as personal goals, no, I'm just trying to enjoy life as it is right now.
Appreciate it.
Got Halloween coming up. I'm going to be dressed up with my 2-year-old as go from there.
Yeah.
So, and things I'd like to see more in the industry is, I know as a board member, we get, different lens or veil, if you want, what you want to call it. Schools right now are not promoting construction as much. I'd like to see that. I know they're trying, and I know they're trying on every facet, CT programs and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we're still in a labor shortage.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have as much labor as we'd like. So it's anything we can do to help that out. That would be, I think, helpful. I know we try to promote as much as we can. And I think,
Well, and truly being a mentor in the industry and being able to be a part of any advisory committees, any stakeholders committees that we can be involved in. Myself and along with you and the board can be involved because we're all mentors if we've been in the industry and can advise and help with any of those struggles. So it's instrumental. What would you recommend for a future board member that would want to become involved with our board?
I would recommend make sure you got time. Make sure you have time to go to all the events and all that stuff. But it's one of those things that it is rewarding. You do see progress. I know sometimes looking from the outside in, there is no progress, but you do see it. Whether it's the trades days, we help out a lot of different community causes. So that's really nice. It's not always broadcasted to everyone. So I think that's it. And I know we need to get younger people in the board. So we're trying.
Yeah, always a continuous effort. Well, thank you, Nick, for coming and being on our podcast here in the Exchange with the Builders Exchange of San Joaquin. And thank you for being a board member and volunteering. And I appreciate that. And I know our organization appreciates that. So thank you for making all your efforts. Thank you for watching this episode of Inside the Exchange. For more information about becoming a member of Builders Exchange, click the link below. We'll see you in the next episode.